Let me share my screen. So the main purpose of enhancing the Java thing was on the functional programming aspect. So what is the functional programming here is, like instead of writing everything as separate methods and calling with those instances or directly from the class names, the Java 8 has given a concept where it is not like tightly coupled. So you don't need to tell like this is an int method or it is a static method or it is like a kind of object class or any kind of things which is not like tightly coupled. And instead of that, you mentioned that it's like a kind of a program which gives you result and it accepts some input. That's it. So the structure would be like this input and output concept, and it is not on the data type level. So in this is like common in the JavaScript frameworks, the front end frameworks like JavaScript, where we don't have dependency on the data type. So in JavaScript, if you want to define any variable of variable x equal to 10, it takes it as integer. Or if you want to just take variable x equal to some string as this, it will still accept that as a string or a character data type. So it is not like bound on the data type which you define on your left side, like before assignment. It will be on the value you pass for your assignment operator. So same way for all your functions or whatever methods you create, or for any kind of object structure, it is happening in the front end. But in Java, this kind of functional programming emerged only in the Java 8 version, and before that it was only on the object oriented programming. So we might get a question like whether the Java is an object oriented programming or a functional programming. So internally, the basic thing which is getting justified here is it's object oriented only, but it is also feasible to implement those object oriented programming through the functional aspects. And so whoever asks like is Java or functional programming, or if someone says it's only object oriented programming, you can say it is only object oriented programming. But only difference is like the way we implement gets changed through the functional aspects. So recently, like in our AWS cloud also, you might have seen the thing called Lambda functions. So which is again like the functional programming. So now it is called as function as a service, right, in market. So this is the same way which is again implemented in your Java surface as a functional programming. So what is the main criteria for your functional programming is, so you remember what is an interface?
Yes.
So like you can tell me like what is an interface and what type of methods are acceptable in interface?
So interface, we just declare the methods. We don't define them for interface.
So we don't define them, yeah. And what type of methods? Like it should be a private method or is it is a default method?
Private cannot be used, right?
Yeah. So by default, what do we have in that? So they are by default public, right? Yeah. So in functional programming, it basically interacts more with the concept of interface. And why it is an interface, what type of style of programming is implemented through our functional programming is something we'll learn through the interface concept. So the interface is the basic core concept to start with the Java 8. So most of the things whatever we work on will be more into an interface programming. And you should have a basic idea about how to create objects and everything, but the main representation of this interface through functional programming is a lambda expression, which will be like hyphen arrow mark. So this would be something you will see most of the time, like whenever you're writing a program you'll be referencing this. And then we use this anonymous class, like the anonymous classes, you don't have any name for that class. So you can just blankly say new that class name, and you say this is the way. Usually whatever we do is we create new class name. This is one way. Or you can just open a curly brace, write the entire programming and close that within that particular method. So this is an anonymous class where your class name gets created dynamically. You don't need to give or pass any class name. Instead, the entire program, whatever you're planning to write, will be within this and it gets executed. So most of the functional programming, the style of programming which we try to follow here would be anonymous and would be kind of a lambda expression. And how are we gonna depict them? So do we have any kind of um, side effects, like if you don't declare any variable name or if you don't declare any object name or any class name, do we have any side effect? No. So it is like most understandable, like the entire Java 8 feature, the runtime jar of Java 8 is acceptable to take this kind of structure to read the program, whatever you write within, and it accepts it and then it executes your program. So the main thing, the functional programming is like, these are just pure functions. So, and it accepts only the input and it performs the entire operation, whatever you define within that particular anonymous class or within the Lambda function, and then it provides you the respective output. So these are also called as first class functions, or sometimes they name it as Lambda or sometimes they name it as first class functions. So for example, let's say our interface is a kind of a blueprint which tells like what to do and not how to do. So it tells like what to do and not how to do. So if, for example, if you have an interface, say, bank account, and it has savings, it has deposit, and it has creation of account, it has loan application. Yeah, these are the methods, but how do you want to do this, or how do you want to execute the savings account, or how do you want to create your loan application? The steps will not be provided in your interface. So whoever implements this particular interface will have their own kind of logic. So that would be your child classes where you implement them, or implements the bank account, and where you write your entire logic of your each each overridden methods. But is it mandatory to have all my methods which I have used in my interface, or can I skip them? So usually what happens, if you have in an interface, you have like four methods: savings, deposit, creation, and loan application. So whenever you implement that particular interface in a child class, what is the kind of warning you get when you give this kind of statement, implements bank account? It tells you one kind of statement like override the methods which has been created in your interface. You hope you have observed that earlier.
Yeah, so unimplemented
Yeah,
methods.
so it tells you to implement all the methods which you have as part of your interface, right? So there is no restriction that I don't want to use this, I don't want to use this, right? So there is a kind of a dependency where you have to use all the methods which you have as part of your interface. There is no restriction or there is no kind of control you can delete that particular method in your implemented class. So there's a kind of tight bounding happening in the interface till Java 7. So what happened in Java 8 is they bought two kind of things. One is default implementation in interfaces. The second one is static implementation. So far, the interface didn't allow us to use any kind of static methods, or everything was public, and whatever you implement in your child classes will always be a public method, and you write your own logic in that particular classes. But in Java 8, they gave this feature in the interfaces, the two important key points in our interface. So one is like in our interface class. So whenever you write your bank account interface, let's say this is my interface, a bank account. You have savings method, you have deposit, you have, let's say, in banking. apply loan. So we have 4 methods. So whenever you write 4, this 4 has to be implemented in your child class. So what I'm doing right now is I'm making it as default. Okay, so default is kind of method which doesn't have any kind of uh, access specifier defined explicitly like public. By default, it will be a default method which doesn't have any kind of access specifier in it. So what happens here is if you have a default behavior, for example, if you're applying a loan, you need to have a default savings of 2 lakhs in your account. And only if you have that, you are eligible to apply loan in the respective bank. And that varies for each bank. If you're a bank of HDFC, that has to be 1.5. If you're a part of Kotak, then it has to be 2.5. So only the limit is getting changed, but the behavior of that particular application of loan is remaining same. So in that case, what you can do is if your entire logic remains same, and apart from passing the values which can be dynamic, can be defined under the concept called static. So what happens, the behavior remains same in whatever bank you go and apply loan. That's a static behavior. So what I'll do here is I'll just pass like int limit, and I'll give a logic here. If my limit is if limit is greater than 2.5 L, then you're eligible. Else, not eligible. So some kind of logic where I am right. This is static for entire place wherever you implement this interface. I don't want to rewrite my entire logic. So the concept of the abstraction where you have learned through abstract classes, like if you have a kind of a common logic between your child and parent class, you'll write your entire logic in your abstract class and you just use that method in your child class. The same behavior has been provided in Java 8, where you don't need to have any kind of rewriting the reusable logic again in all your child classes. Instead, you can define them in your actual interface, and you can just directly use this apply loan as a static method in all your child classes, and you have a kind of feasibility where you don't need to rewrite your entire logic. So that was one kind of add-on which has been provided through our interface. This is one thing. We'll see in detail about the default and static with examples, but right now the one of the advantage of using the static and default is like you don't need to rewrite everything in your child class. Instead, you can have a static behavior in your interface itself, so that whenever you're trying to create an object, for example the child class object, and you're trying to implement the savings and deposit and net banking, this apply loan will not be kind of an hindrance for you to rewrite your method or override your logic. Instead, you can just directly call bank account dot apply loan, and you can use that behavior. So this is one kind of a plus point was given by the Java 8 feature. And this is a normal enhancement happened in the interface. But what is actually a functional interface? So the main functional programming is all started with the functional interface concept. Functional programming, which is again dependent on functional interfaces. So they together named it as functional interface. So what is a functional interface here? So you need to have at least one abstract method. So by default, all your interface methods, right, whatever you write, savings, deposit, everything are abstract methods, but they're also by a public. Okay, so what is abstract method? You don't have any kind of definition like how it is going to behave in the interface. Instead, it will have all its behavior in the respective child classes where you write your logic. So wherever you have at least one abstract method, then that is said to be functional interface. So in this case, in bank account, I have like 4 methods. One is like, let's say static, and the other 3 are public. So will this bank account be a functional interface or a normal interface?
It's functional. One question. So static functions cannot be static methods cannot be inherited, right?
Sorry, can you tell again?
Yeah, static methods cannot be inherited, right?
Yeah, that is the reason you're not inheriting it. Instead, you're using that method directly. So you just use bank account dot apply loan, and you don't need to create any object or you don't need to override it. You just use it from your interface itself. But this was not possible earlier in Java 7. If you write any kind of static, you'll end up with any kind of error. Okay, let me open a class here. If you see, only public and abstract are permitted. Right? This is the error you get whenever you write any kind of static methods in your interface. The usual behavior in Java 7. So what happened in Java 8 is they are giving the feasibility to use your Java method interfaces in your actual interface where you're trying to implement them.
So we can define static methods in interface itself from Java.
Yeah. So let's comment this, and I use this static. I remove the static. So this is default method. So what I'm doing is in the default method, I'm writing my own behavior. So by usually the default method is you don't have to give any kind of access specifier. But in case of interface, you have to provide the keyword default. So what happens now? Okay, I think my package is not having Java 8. Java 8. So if you see here, you are getting an error, right? Default methods are only at the source level of 1.8 or above. I think it's a pom.xml. Let me open it. So now if you see, you don't see that error because the default methods are something and the static methods are something which is being given only from Java 8. So now what happens if I wanted to implement that in my interface? Let me go here. Implements fun inter. So when I see this overloaded method here, you can see the test1 and the test2, both the methods. You can override both the things, but it will have a default behavior. So what I can do is, okay, let me do this test1. So you can see internally, this is getting implemented from its super class, which is directly from your package, which is your interface. And this is the behavior of that default one. So now let me go to the actual class. So how do you call your object now? Like what object do I need to create?
For the class,
Yeah. So I'm using the function interface Java 8. So I'll create there itself one.
object reference.
So if you see the one which is getting implemented is the default behavior of your interface, and the test2 was the behavior of your uh, actual interface where it is getting overridden. If you don't want this one, if you want to override, let's say, let's have our own test2 default method.
In this case, there won't be any difference between abstract class and the interface, right?
Yeah, exactly. So after Java 8, the behavior of abstract class is also built in within the interface itself. So internally, the interface is also an abstraction, but we were only able to achieve the partial abstraction in terms of interface earlier, but now we are able to achieve the full abstraction because of our abstract classes too. So now let me execute this again. So you see, it is being overridden only if you wanted to. Otherwise, it is not overriding it. So the default is kind of, you have a kind of a normal behavior for all your classes or for all the interfaces where you're going to implement them. And in future, if you want, you can override them. So this is one of an advantage. Like if you have some reusable code and you don't want to rewrite everywhere in your child classes, you can still go with your default behavior. And what is the static behavior now? So let's say, like earlier, if I define static, you were getting an error in 1.5 or 1.7. Now, if I say static void test3, static interface method. Okay, now let me go here. So how do you execute your static method?
For class, we can directly call without creating the object. This interface,
Yeah, so how do you need to call now? So it's an interface now. So how can I create that interface object for my starting?
just interface name dot function method name.
Yeah. So if you try to call it from your object, you cannot see the static method. So it will be directly like it's an add-on advantage, like you don't need to create one more object memory allocation. Instead, it will be called directly from it. So like the same behavior of static, but through interface, we are able to achieve it. Earlier, it was possible only through your abstract classes or the normal concrete classes, but now that is also possible in your interfaces. So this is a way where we can enhance our behavior, the reusability through this concept from our Java 8, not before that. So that is one of the main advantages. So now coming back to the functional interface, in the interface, we had multiple things, right? But we had only public void test as only one method. So wherever we have only one, this is an abstract method. So by default, any method which is being defined within your interface is an abstract method. So if you have only one abstract method, then that falls into the category of functional interface. If you have more than one method as public or any kind of methods, more than one, then that doesn't mean it's a functional interface. So let me show you the thing.
Can you repeat the last statement?
So the functional interface is like you have only one method as an abstract method, one abstract method, not more than one. So what is a functional interface is like you have a similar structure of your interface, but you will not have multiple methods. You'll have only one method, which is an abstract method. So what is this functional interface and why do we need to have only one method and not more than that? So the main advantage is like when you're trying to implement every programming, the style of programming through Java 8, the functional programming, when we try to use this functional interface concept, we use a kind of annotation structure to use your method. So since we are using anonymous class, if you have only one method, we can represent that in this format and write our piece of code. But if you have more, this doesn't mean like this is the representation of your one abstract method. But if you have more than one abstract method, it doesn't mean like what you are referring to, and the system gets confused like when you're using the functional interface. So that is the main reason when it comes to functional interface, we have only one method as your abstract method. So let me say now here.
Is there any limitation on other methods like defined methods in interface?
Sorry, come again.
So we were saying that for functional interface, we need only one abstract method in the interface.
Yeah.
So is there any other limitation? Like, can we have multiple defined methods in the interface itself?
No. So whenever you're using a functional interface, it should have only one method. That doesn't mean like you can have multiple. Say example, if you have add, subtract, delete, or any kind of things, it will not consider it as a functional interface. It will be a normal interface. But if you want a functional interface, then you can have only one method in it, not more than that.
Okay, so for a functional interface, we need only one method.
Only one abstract method. So only one method like this one, like your test one, you can have only one. And whenever you're using the functional interface, as we learned earlier, the annotation thing, so you'll be using an annotation called @functional interface. So this tells implement like sometimes we may not know which interface is functional, which is not, right? So this is a kind of a representation for any kind of a developer to know that this is a functional interface, because sometimes only if you go through the class, you get to know this is a normal interface or a function. But if you use this annotation at the background, this interface tells us like this is a runtime activity and which accepts only the type. So you have seen earlier what type of this. So this is a representation of your interface. So this is only used only for interface, which is an annotation which can be used, which can accept only one abstract method, not more than that. So why are we more dependent on this functional interface in Java 8 programming is we have something called lambda expression. So what is this lambda expression? Why is this dependent on the functional interface? So like if you want to write a normal method, let's say sum, okay, what you do, you give the data type int a and you give the other parameters data type, and the actual data type which you're expecting as your return type will be your return data type. So this will be the usual structure. But in Java 8 programming, what we do is we'll not tell like what data type you're going to pass here. Everything would be like kind of a runtime activity, and it's not like tightly coupling. Everything is loosely coupled going forward. So you don't need to tell like what data type you're going to accept. So instead I'll say sum of A comma B. That's it. So whatever input you pass, I'll get it. And the same way, the return type, right? Whatever you're going to return, that has been reduced. So basically, the actual definition which you write usually in Java 7 and the format which you follow, the same thing remains. But now you might not have the data type related thing specified in Java 8. So everything would be defined in this block, which tells like, I don't know anything. Just give me the input. I'll process and give you the output. That's it. I'm not making it more tightly coupled as before. So that is the reason they have bought this Java 8 Lambda expression. So basically, you're making your entire precise code into a precise and concise. That's it. That's the main ideology behind our Java 8 Lambda expressions. So we are going to store only the actual action we are going to work on. So the sum is going to give only the sum A plus B. That's it. I'm not dependent on what type is it on. So now you might have a question, then why do we need generics? So the main purpose of generics is you're going to give some data type TA and some data type of B, and you're going to return the some type of C. This is what we're doing in the generics in general. But why are we overriding them and getting back to this Lambda expressions is, you don't need to tell me the system has already been designed in such a way, like whatever you're doing as part of generics is taken care in the Lambda expression. So you don't need to handle your generics explicitly as you write a separate piece of code so that it takes any input, any data type of input, and it processes any data type and returns back. So all kind of wrapping, all kind of conversions, or any kind of mismatch or any kind of parsing, everything has to be explicitly taken care in terms of generic. But in terms of Lambda expression, this is all inbuilt by our Java 8 jar. So we don't need to think much about our generics in place of Lambda expression. So whatever you write, if your interface is one method, an abstract method, then you're eligible to use the Lambda expression, and you're not dependent on your data types anymore. So everything is taken care by the system. Any questions till now?
Yeah. Can we see some implementation of this?
Yeah. So now let's see in the same interface. Let me create a one more interface. Let's say baking. Okay, so we are going to make some cake. Void make cake. Okay. And it has to be public. Now, whichever class is going to implement it, right? So let's cake it as a chocolate cake. Implements. What is the name? Okay, so now we'll take one more interface. So Now we had defined the types and the interface. Now let's create the class where we're gonna call them. So let's take as baker. Okay. So we have a main method. So whenever you have multiple child classes, you'll be creating an object, right? What happened here? Why we are getting this error? Okay. So the one thing we have is choco cake. So let's create that object. Whenever you're passing an object, only then I'm going to call the bake part. So what we'll do is make cakes. Let's have a method and that accepts your interface. Your interface is baking interface, baking object, and this returns me nothing but execution of my method. Okay, and now here with that baking, I'm gonna call the bake method. Make cake. So this is my make cakes method. Choco dot. As my other one, just vanilla.
So this one looks like factory design pattern, right?
Sorry, come again.
So this one looks like factory design pattern.
Yeah, exactly. So whenever I'm passing it, I'm passing that respective object and making the call. That's it. So I'm not making a call happen directly. So instead, I'm making it there from here. That's it. Yeah, same factory design pattern. Yeah. So what did we do so far is we created an interface that creates your cake, and you have created your two child classes that implements the relevant interface. And with that object, with the main class, you're just invoking them. So this is a usual way we do in our Java thing. So what happens in terms of Java? This is a usual way we write in Java 7. Okay. But now how can I remodify them in Java 8? So my just the way of the thing I have implemented, it gets changed now. So what are we doing here? We are making a call to our relevant interface with the object of choco or vanilla. So what I'll do is here, the baking interface that will have that is the actual place where the execution of make cake will be called, right? So I'm going to say like this is my action point. So let's say this baking interface bake action. And so how do I represent? This is the lambda expression, and this is the way I need to notate. And what I'm going to do, this is the way I represent it. So what I'm going to pass here is whatever object I get, I'm just executing here. So make action, sorry, bake action. You can see here the method make cake directly coming here. So I don't need to make a separate method, get the interface object, and then call the make cake. Instead, I'm making it directly called through this structure of lambda expression. Okay, so for example, if I'm giving here just, if you have just one line statement, you don't need the curly braces. If you have like 10 lines, more than one line, then you can have your parenthesis and write your piece of code. Right now, I'm just giving sys out. I'm just saying baking in process. That's it. Now let me run it again. So whatever I passed here got executed. And this particular interface, whatever interface object has been given, has been taken care. So I didn't give any vanilla or cake. Only the structure of making has been changed here. So if I wanted to do a type reference here, then I can do it in terms of the relevant choco as well as the relevant vanilla cake. Did you understand the structure, the syntax alone? You don't need to think more. What did we do here is we were passing our baking interface object. So if it is a choco, we are passing it as choco. If it is a vanilla, we are passing it as a vanilla child class. And with that, we are making the cake. So instead of writing these many lines of code and calling the make cake, what I'm doing right now is I'm creating the interface reference. And in this, I'm just passing the statement, whatever I'm looking for. And with that interface, I'm directly making the call. So instead of writing like 2 to 3 lines, we are reducing it to a single line.
Earlier, we were never creating a interface reference, right?
Yeah. So here we didn't create any interface reference. So whatever you're passing was a child object. So the execution, whatever object you passed, for that object, the makex was executed. So here I didn't call them. Instead, I just represented the structure of my lambda expression. That's it. So the lambda expression is like whatever you want, you just pass through this method and you represent that. So it is nothing but the same way your make cake is having. It accepts an input or it accepts an output. So the representation of the parameter is getting depicted here. And what you're going to do in terms of that particular process.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see one more example so that you might get one more idea on it. So like you would have heard about that algebraic functions, right? So let's example, you have 4n power, what is this? N power 3 plus 3n power 2 plus 2n plus 0. So what happens, this is a higher order functions, right? So the same way your functional programming also has something called as first class functions, which I mentioned earlier somewhere, I guess. Yeah, the first class functions. And it also has something called as higher order functions. Okay, so these all the kind of functions can be executed through our functional programming style. So in which order do you want? So for example, if you have an array list, you want your array list to be sorted first, and then you have to sort it based on alphabetic order ascending. And then you have to display with the number of characters greater than 2 in the first, and then greater than 10 in the later. So it is more of ascending, as well as the number of words also is being taken care when you display your order. So I have two things here. One is sorting, which is happening in ascending. Another one is the number of words. Based on the words, I need to print the output. So only if my number of words is greater than 5, that comes in the first. Otherwise, those words will be going at the later point of time. So it is not like alphabetic sorting. It is more of word-based sorting also. So if I have these two to be performed on an array list. So now this is the higher order function. So which one should I execute first? So I'll first make everything in the form of sorting first in alphabetic order. Then once that is done, on top of that, I'm going to check the count of each word, each list or the word carries on. And then based on that, I'm again going to sort my entire data set and then print my final set. So here I have two functions. So which one has to be prioritized first and which has to be taken next? That is also being defined. And the way you define this order can be done through your lambda functions. So your lambda expression can have n number of functions within it. And finally, you can collect your output as you wanted. So if the same thing has to be implemented, so example, you have an array list object. So what do you do first? You use collections dot sort and you pass this L object. And based on that, your data just gets sorted. And post that, you're going to iterate it again. So you use your for each loop and you do your entire logic to figure out what are the number of words, and you get the final new array list from it and you print your new array list. So this is what you do. But to do this, what is the number of programming lines you have taken care is maybe more than 3 or 4 lines. But the same thing to be achieved from your lambda expressions would be very easy in a single piece of line. So if you want to do a comparison, or if you're going with a comparable or comparator interface, then to sort your data set, instead of directly using from collections.sort, then you can also use the relevance comparator in your classes. And all these things can be defined in a single piece of code. So the collection which I'm using is list. So I just use something called stream. So I'll tell you what is stream here. I'll use something called stream. And with that, I go and say collect. What I'm going to collect the entire list, but how am I going to collect? By doing some kind of sorting. And on top of sorting, I'm going to again do some kind of one more sorting based on number of words. So there are two activities performed here. So what I'll do, before passing my stream, I can say collections dot sort, or you can use your list object. And you can use your comparator if you have any comparator. So what is a comparator? You remember the comparator interface, what it accepts, everything? So there are two things, comparator and comparable interface, right? So comparable is something which comes from your lang package, which is a natural sorting order. But if you want to do some kind of sorting apart from your natural sorting, then you go and write your own logic on the relevant comparator class. You create your own comparator based on your entity, like based on ID do you want to sort, or based on the name you want to sort, whatever type of sorting you want. You write your own comparator class and use a compare2 method in it, right? You remember? Yeah. So what I'm doing here is the input which I'm going to pass here is list object is my input. And what I'm going to do is, like, on top of that, I'm doing two kind of sorting. The one is ascending sorting, and another one is based on the number of characters in each word. So here I'll do something called using this comparator. So comparator interface, if you see the comparator interface, if you see here, you can observe a method called functional interface, because this particular method has only one method, that is compare, which is the actual abstract method. The rest all things are default methods, which is not needed for us in case of functional interface. So the functional interface should have only one abstract method, and you're okay if you have that method, and that is being considered as your functional interface. So whenever I'm wanted to use that functional interface, what I can do is, in this one, I'm just representing the annotation lambda expression. And what I'm going to use here, the comparator compare2 method accepts how many parameters? It accepts 2 parameters. So I just need to give these two inputs alone in my representation. So how will I give? So here in this comparator, I'll say this is my input. And in the input, I'll say I'm going to pass two inputs. So for example, if I'm comparing two data set in my list object, so I'll take it as A1, A2. Okay, this is my two inputs of my compare object. And what I'm going to compare, the same thing. So A1 is my input. I'm going to compare that using the compare2 method of my comparator. and I'm going to pass the A2. That's it. So this will give me a Boolean result, but nowhere else I'm telling it's a Boolean. I'm just telling directly, I'm using this method compare to for the two values, A1 and A2, and those are the two inputs I'm passing, and that is dependent on my actual list where I have these two inputs. That's it. Once I get here, you see the what is the operation it's finally returning me. So it tells me like I'm comparing the entire data set for the list object based on these attributes. The same thing if you want to write earlier, what would you have done? You would have written your comparator, and in the comparator you would have a method, and within that method you would have used this a1.compare to a2, and you written a Boolean value, and you use that Boolean value in your collections.sort. So you create a new comparator of, and then the comparator method, and then you pass the object here. But now we don't need to do that. Instead, we are directly passing the input, and you're telling what I'm going to do in there. So only the action, whatever you're doing, that action is being represented here instead of creation of your object creation, and then the calling of that method is being avoided in your Lambda expression, because it's a functional interface and you don't need to tell like what object you're going to call. It is known. You're going to call only compared to, no other method you're going to call. So you know that the parameters that you're going to pass for that is there's something you can define it here. If you don't have any parameters passed as an input, it will be just like an empty thing followed by a representation of an arrow. And if it's a single statement to be executed, you don't need to give anything. But if it's a more than one line of statement, you just need to tell that within the parenthesis. That's it. So this is the representation of our Lambda expression. So what is the benefit of using this Lambda expression is, since it has only one abstract method, you know you're going to end up with that, and you don't need to use any kind of object creation because the anonymous class representation is acceptable in Java 8, and it is more of like a function. So it tells like what action you're going to do, and instead of making it is more of complicated in your object creation by creating the object and calling that relevant method from using that object, we are avoiding that, and we are making it everything in an anonymous fashion so that you don't have to write n number of lines of code. Did you understand like why are we going with Lambda and what is functional interface? To some extent, not in detail, to some extent, what is what?
The concept is somewhat clear. Implementation, I need to see.
Yeah, we'll see more examples because the Lambda expression and there's something called stream programming. Okay, these are the stream is not something which we learned in Java NA or like IO packaging. This stream programming is different, and you have something called Lambda. So these two are tied up actually. So only if these two are known, you are actually implementing your functional style of programming from Java 8. So what I suggest is once you start learning this, I want you to write any kind of program like array list or anything. You write the same thing in Java 7. Try to enhance that in Java 8. So you know like what is the difference using the 7 and 8 and how you're making it more efficient through Java 8. Okay, so there's one more concept called optional interface. Okay, this is something like if you want to do a null check, what do we do in Java? Usually what do we do to do a null check?
So string equal to.
No, if you want to avoid null pointer exception, what do you do in your code?
Okay, we will have a if block to see.
Yeah, so we have an if block that tells like whatever collection or a string or any kind of Java class you're using, you make a condition not equal to null, and then only you pass into that object or block. So what happened is this is a kind of common issue which is happening in everywhere, but every time you need to maintain an if block, and that is increasing a piece of line of code. If it is null, then you might get some kind of thing, and if it is not equal to null, you might end up with a null pointer exception. So in all these cases, sorry, if it is equal to null, you end up with a null pointer exception. So to avoid these many if blocks in all the places, what they have given is this: they have implemented something called optional interface. So what is this optional interface does? So this particular thing helps us in know whether the data set which you are looking for, which has some value or it has some null value. So instead of giving it as null, it gives us something as an empty. So it's empty is nothing but a final object, which is nothing but an object. So the empty is like you're not getting the actual data set. So you might end up with a null pointer exception. So it giving us an awareness. So how can we validate? So we have a methods like is present. So only if it is present, you're going it. So internally, the value is not equal to null is a check which we are going to do. But it is more easy to use this method directly with your optional classes. And if you have something, say, if present. So only if I have value, I'm going to go with the next step. So as we know, this also works for higher order functions. So what we do is like only if my data has some value, I'm going to sort my data and I'm going to collect the data. So this is the 3 steps which I'm going to do. So this is a list object and I'm going to sort it and I'm going to collect it. And collect means nothing but the list is going to be printed finally. So this is my actual action points. But before doing that, my list might be empty or may not be empty. So if I need to do it in Java 7, I'll do like list dot length or list is not equal to null. These 2 checks I'll do to ensure that I'm not ending up with a null pointer exception in Java 7. But what will Java 8 helps us to do is instead of taking it as a list, I'll take it as optional list. And only if my optional list is present using that method, then I'll gonna use something called collections.sort method by using the stream. So I'll say optional list dot get. So let me do it directly here itself. Okay, let me create a list. So is my option an interface or a class?
So here
Let
it
me
is a
see
class.
that. So it's a final class, right? Can I create an object to my option final class?
Yeah, I think you can create an object.
So we can create, but if you see here, the constructor, this is a private constructor.
Private. Okay.
So in that case, you can't create an object. So what is a private constructor? And if your class is final, and what type of design pattern is this?
It's on a singleton.
Yeah. So if you want to use, then you should have some other static method to create your object, right? So if you see here, if it is off nullable, that is the value is null, you return empty. Otherwise, you use a method called off, and that is giving some kind of value with this thing. So you have to use off nullable here. So I'll use optional dot off. Of nullable, and I'm passing my list here. And only if it is empty, I'm not going with. Otherwise, I'm gonna get it. So to do that, I'm gonna check is present. Okay, if is present, then return the value. So to return the value, what should I use again? So I should go with optional of value. Okay, so this is the one we're gonna use it. So the value which I'm gonna get here is list. Okay, and I'm gonna print it. P dot get.
So 27, you are using a ternary operator.
Insert expression to complete what happened. Okay, I didn't use the ternary. So I'll use optional dot empty if I don't have anything. Okay, let me run it. So I don't have anything in my list. So I'm getting it. So what happened is instead of having multiple if blocks and doing, this Java 8 optional has already validated what type of check you're going to do when you get any kind of value. You're just gonna reuse that method and get the relevant value. So it is making the life of a developer more easier by having all the methods handy. So you don't need to write everything as a separate block. That is what the Java 8 functional programming is all about. So whatever you learned so far using the same thing, you're just modifying it with a better way of writing your programming. So that is the purpose of Java 8. So we'll see more detail about this Lambda and stream in tomorrow's class, so that you'll know like what exactly. So you got now an idea like what is a Lambda representation. So the representation is nothing but whatever you define in the usual way of method creation. We are just compressing that and we are just telling them this is my structure. So this is the input or output I'm going to pass, and this is the action which you're going to perform. So if I'm using comparator, I'm getting two inputs, N1 and N2. So I'm passing that N1 and N2 as an input. And whatever I'm going to perform as an action, I'm going to call the compare2 method, and that is here, and that returns a Boolean. So I'm not going to explicitly say this is the Boolean return type. So since it's a functional interface, it's a known that I'm going to get only a Boolean result. So this is the way you can minimize your programming, and it is more of a functional programming rather than creating objects and calling them. So it's a more of like making the developer's life easy. That is the main thing of a Java 8, so that you don't need to write n number of lines. Instead, you'll have everything in a 2 to 3 lines. You'll cover up all your logic in 2 to 3 lines.
Okay.
Okay, so are we good till here? Like,
Yeah.
so the basic is the interface concept. So just refresh like what is an interface and which methods can be overridden, which cannot be overridden, so that tomorrow when we start doing functional programming, we can explore that too. Yeah. Have a good day. We'll see tomorrow.
And please upload the video.
Yeah, sure.
Need
Yeah.
to refer it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day.